Jamaica's government is using bonds to fund part of the national budget. Is this a big deal? Let's talk about it. I'm Kalila Enriquez Reynolds, founder and CEO of Money Media, Money Made Simple. So I've seen some comments talking about the government reopening 17.5 billion Jamaican dollars in bonds to help fund the budget. That's about 109 million US dollars. To put that in context, the government is planning to spend $1.3 trillion this fiscal year. So the new bonds would make up about 13% of the budget. Needless to say, there have been mixed reactions. So let's break it down. The government is actually reopening 3 different bonds. The first is valued at 2 billion JMD and has an interest rate of 7.5% and matures in February 2035. There's another $2 billion bond with an 8.25% interest rate that matures in March 2024. And finally, there's a $13.5 billion bond that pays 9.6% interest and matures in November 2031. The concern is that the government is borrowing money to fund the budget. And this is common practice among governments. The budget is normally funded by tax revenues, grants, and debt. Debt usually takes the form of government bonds, but some countries, including Jamaica, have gotten in trouble with debt before. Not too long ago, Jamaica was one of the most highly indebted countries in the world. It had been borrowing at really high interest rates. You could earn well over 20% interest by buying Jamaican government bonds. This was unsustainable, and there came a point where they couldn't pay it back. That's when the IMF stepped in and forced them to do the Jamaica Debt Exchange, JDX, and the National Debt Exchange, NDX. Under these deals, GOJ bondholders had to accept new terms, which included lower interest rates and longer maturity dates. Fast forward to this year, and GOJ is again borrowing money to fund the budget, which has some people thinking, is this going to get us in trouble again? Well, a lot is different now than it was 15 years ago at the peak of Jamaica's debt problems. First of all, the interest rates. I mentioned them earlier. Interest on these new bonds range from 7.5 to 9.6%. That's much, much lower than the bonds that got Jamaica in trouble. Secondly, Jamaica's debt to GDP has been consistently falling. Debt to GDP measures a country's debt versus the total value of that country's economy for the year. At the peak of Jamaica's troubles, debt to GDP was at 152%, meaning the country owed way more than it earned. In 2025, that's now down to just 64%, the lowest it's been in 30 years. And as you can see from this chart by Statista, it's projected to fall to 52% by 2029. And that's not by luck. The government has been taking strategic and very deliberate measures to gradually reduce the debt. So even though they do continue to borrow, it's on much better terms, and the debt trajectory is still heading in the right direction, down. And that's the bottom line. So what do you think about this? Are you worried about the government's borrowing? Let me know in the comments. And by the way, you can invest in government bonds and earn interest from the government. Want to learn how? Go to getmoneynews.com. The link is in my bio or in the description. Let's get this money.
Let's get this money.